Hello and welcome to another episode of Property-Pxrn Stars, the premium property podcast brought to you by your hosts David Lindley.
And I'm Matt Giggs.
And today our guest, our star, is none other than Matt Strafford, who's the MD of Dream Home Films. And we've dragged him out from being the other side of the camera to in front of the camera, which sort of is and isn't your natural habitat, isn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, the last kind of few years, definitely not. I've been behind the camera, but in sort of previous work, I've always sort of been in front of it, and it's kind of served me well, really. So it is a bit, it's a bit odd. I'm a bit out of practice being in front.
So let's kind of start from
Start there.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Gave you a nice little hook there.
So, just for the sake of people listening who might not know what is Dream Home Films?
Yeah, so we are essentially sort of a production company that produce high-end content for estate agents, predominantly. Helping them list their properties and get the most exposure through video, photos, and other sort of marketing things that they need to get the properties to market, essentially.
And I'm really glad that you could join us today, because I think that you're going to give, no pressure, I suppose. You're going to give us a bit of a different insight into the world that we talk about, which is the premium property market, coming from the point of view of working with lots of different agents and being the other side of the transaction and so on. But before we get into that, just talk to us about where Dream Home came from, your journey into it, and how you came to be in the position you are in today.
Yeah, it's an interesting journey in the way of so I've been a musician for about 15 years. Lucky, well, I say lucky. I mean, I've I worked very hard to make it a full-time job, and was able to do that for about 15 years. And then COVID came around, and I've got two daughters, so I thought, okay, it's probably time to. The hours are horrific. Do you know what I mean? Being a musician, you're out on the road 3, 4, 5 times a week, and you work until 3, 4 in the morning. With daughters, you've got kids. That's a tough life. It's a tough one to do. Yeah. It's okay when you're sort of 20. It's enjoyable. When you're sort of 30 and 35, it's kind of like, okay, this is getting harder to drive home. And so I knew I wanted to do something else. I knew that I wanted to create another business doing something creative, but I didn't know what. And I had one of my best friends, Nick. He was running a bar in Spain, having a great time. He came home. He sort of sold that, came home, and he's always been with me in the music sort of side of my business. He's always done like my sound and always helped out and things like that. So I said to him, look, when you come back, come and do my sound for me again, and we'll think about something to start up. And he did media at college, so he's always done filming and stuff for us. And I've got a small sort of property portfolio that me and my wife have set up. And I said to him, why don't we try and put those two things together? Put the filming, the property together. I see these videos and I think we can do better, basically.
Yeah.
So it was amazing how it worked. Actually, we met someone at a wedding who had a contact in Fun and Country. And that was kind of how we got going, essentially. Initially, I had a contact in golf clubs. So I thought, what are we going to film? Property's nice. We haven't really gotten in. So where are we going to go with this? And one of my good friends in the village that I live owns a couple of golf clubs near where we are. So I thought, okay, let's do some promotional video for golf clubs. Maybe that might, sort of be something that we can hook in. Because, I mean, like I was saying to you earlier, when you've got a camera, you can do anything. The world we're in, where video is so important, you can film anything. And I think you've got to find something that you're good at, music videos, like commercials, anything like that, and stick to that, and just get very good at one thing. Otherwise, you are just kind of a guy with a camera. Yeah, and I think, so we tried the golf club thing, realised that they didn't want to pay for it. They just didn't want to pay to have these nice training videos and, good promotional content and things. I got this contact in Fine and Country, and we met up, and I explained what I wanted to do, and he said, "Yeah, absolutely, let's do that." And that's kind of, and it was strange timing, because that was the first lockdown. Essentially we were kind of stuck at home. But then when things started to open up and we can go and film properties, there was no better time for video to start to become like a normal thing in estate agency. And I think I think the timing of that was just incredible. You know, I wonder if we'd done that 5 years before or starting out now, if things would have been different.
Yeah.
You know,
because you sort of had the crossover of a bit real boom in the property market and a bit of distancing going on. People, just the Zoom culture, social media, everything coming together at once. And
I think
perfect
those things
timing
just
to ride
tied
the
in
wave.
perfectly. You know, people couldn't go and see the houses, so videos became fairly normal. And you know, we started off, myself and Nick, you know, we were filming all day, every day. And then we would come home and edit in the evening. I remember these 16, 17-hour days that we were pushing for months and months. And then eventually we were able to grow the team. You know, we've now got about a team of 15 people, videographers, photographers, in-house editors, admin team, you know, and it's just it's a lovely business to firstly, be able to see these amazing homes, but also just kind of keep pushing and creating content for estate agents to essentially, you know, find ways to sort of promote themselves and the properties. And yeah, it's good fun. It's good fun.
Bit different than being in a band then.
It is. I mean, I think there's elements that kind of go hand in hand. Do you know what I mean? And you know, one of the stories that I always say, that I always sort of try to explain it, is when I was in the music industry, I still do it now, just a lot less. But when I was in that full time, I used to play in pubs when I was sort of 16, 17, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. You know, the abuse that I'd get, that like the money was crap. Do you know what I mean? Like it was a great place to sort of hone your skills, but it's like, right, what's next? Do you know what I mean? What's next? And for me, you know, I tried the whole trying to make it thing, and you know, we went out to America for like 3 months and recorded and had a really cool time. But I've always had a bit of a business head, which I think is different from a lot of my friends who are musicians. You know, they're just solely creative people. But I always had a bit of a business head, and I always knew that I wanted to kind of, you know, really make something work. And I gave it a set amount of time. And then after that, I said, right, I can go and get a normal job, but I can't work. You know, it's just not kind of in me to go and work for somebody else. I like creating things myself. So I thought, okay, well, where's the money in music? You know, if it's not from kind of making it, which is a 1 in a 100 million, do you know what I mean? It's, and I thought events, you know, big events, weddings, corporate, you know, things like that. And how do I get there? How do I position myself so that I don't have to play any pubs anymore? And what I did essentially was I hired a production company to film high-end videos for me, for, you know, my band.
What are the band called, just for a plug?
Well, it's just my name. It's Matt Strafford.
Okay,
yeah,
there you go. I just thought I'd see if there was a little plug for you there.
There's a story there as well.
Quite an easy one then.
Yeah, it was funny because when I left the other band, there was 4 of us, and I decided when I was going to do it on my own that I was going to run the whole business myself, and I would hire in musicians to come and work for me. Because I think it's an odd thing when you're in a band and you've got 4 people who are all supposed to be doing the same amount of work, supposed to be getting paid the same, but there's all, do you know what I mean? There's always somebody who's doing more work, and it all becomes a bit messy. So I said, I'll do it on my own. You know, whatever happens, I'll just, I'll run the whole show. And then when I get events, I'll bring in musicians for those events. It transpired that the most popular thing was me and one other person. So I started it with a guy called Ryan.
Just the 2 of you in the band?
Just the 2, yeah.
Wow.
So it's kind of like a Mumford & Sons kind of feel. So I've got like an acoustic guitar. My other guy's got an electric. I've got like a kick drum, and it's kind of like a Mumford & Sons style.
Wow.
But I think that works for events because they kind of want smaller bands. And my sort of mission was how do we sound like 5 people?
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, we managed to get that pretty much sorted, you know, with the kick drum and stuff like that. But anyway, when we first started, I started with a guy called Ryan. So it was called Matt and Ryan because I didn't want a name like I don't know, same difference, or do you know what I mean? Something horrible like that. So it's just Matt and Ryan. And then after like a year, I started pushing it really hard, and he kind of got burnt out, and he just couldn't, you know, he had other stuff going on, and you know, other projects, and he said, look, I need to bow out, you know. So I just thought, right, I'm just going to call it my name. I can just bring in any guitarist that I want, you know, and that's kind of what I did. I get a bit of abuse from it at events, and people go, what about this guy? And I just don't go into it. I don't go into the whole story of why. But, so I started recording really high-end content, really good video. Went into a studio, spent loads of money I didn't have to record an album essentially. Get it all on Spotify, you know that, and I positioned myself and just basically promoted myself as an event band. And honestly, within I would say within 6 months, never played another pub again, and that just, I didn't. And we've been flown all around the world playing events and things, and we're very lucky to have done that. And I honestly put that to the media that we were putting out. I got rid of everything that I could previously, all the horrible phone videos and recordings you did on your like dictaphone or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And just focused on positioning ourselves. Because I looked at the competition, and the competition were just releasing amazing content. I thought, right, invest in that, and that's going to see you through. And it literally gave me 13 years of private events, and I bring that into what we do here, and that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I truly believe that if you position yourself with the right media, essentially, and you invest in your kind of how you present yourself, that is then going to attract better properties, clients, things like that.
How do you, because you obviously started the media, the film business for estate agents, you and the other guy, is it Nick?
Nick, yeah.
You were out there hammering it 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
How did you go from that point to a team of sort of 15 or 16 to try and, because it's creativity, isn't it, that people invest in?
Yeah, it is.
So they're probably watching your videos and then maybe getting somebody in. It's a bit like an estate agency when you're building a team.
Yeah.
When you first start, it's all you, and then next thing you know, you've got a team of 6, then 8, and 10, and so on and so forth.
Well, it's really
love to know about your journey there.
Yeah, it's really tough, because I think our kind of USP when we started was I wanted to bring to every shoot, I wanted to be a director and a videographer. That was really important to me, because I know there are tons of videographers out there who turn up to a shoot, just hold a camera, and that's fine. They're very good at what they do. Do you know what I mean? They'll film, they'll edit, and it great. But we're working with people who aren't presenters. Do you know what I mean? We're working with people who, most of them feel very uncomfortable doing this.
Yes.
So I think to bring some personality to the table, from us, be energetic, come up with ideas, make the shoots fun. That's what I could bring from my past. And the same with Nick. Nick's been working with me for years and years, and he knows the score. So we were very sure, and that's what we wanted to bring different to other people. So not just the quality of the work, but also just, like I said, the personality. So when we hire people, I was quite lucky. Steve, my guitarist, who I've been with for about 7 years now, I said to him before we went into lockdown, look, I'm going to start this new business, so make sure that you get something set up, because we're not going to be doing this full time, for the next sort of 3-4 years. So he started a photography business. So he was the first person who came on board as like our other videographer, essentially, And that was easy, because I knew that he was like us. He had that same personality. He'd get to shoot. He'd be fun. He'd be energetic.
I met him the other day. He's a great guy.
He's great. Yeah. You texted me, didn't you?
Yeah.
And and that's the hardest thing. Is I reckon last year we hired probably 12 people and we kept 1. And that is because I think it's easy to build a company like this when you kind of hire anybody. But when you're trying to hire people who are really going to connect with the agents as much as you as the business owners are, that's really hard to find.
Yeah.
And you've got to try and incentivize those people, whether it's, financially, we do sort of meetups, we do a big Christmas party. We try and make it like a nice place to work, as well as, paying our guys well and all the kind of stuff that, we want because I found out the competition as well because we started doing just video. And then I had a lot of people, I won't mention the company, but a lot of the people, a lot of the shoots we were on, would have a different photographer from a company, and they would moan and groan on site about how much they were getting paid, how many jobs they had to do that day. It was all and it was just continuous, So when the agents came to us and said, "Look, can you guys do photos and floor plans? Because we want to just come to one place." It was quite a difficult transition period for that 6 months to kind of get our head around doing floor plans and photography and stuff like that. But we did it, and I wanted my guys to go to site, make sure they're not rushed. Don't stick 6 jobs in for them for a day. Do 1 or 2 so they can take the time with the agent. And I think that for us, and it's kind of like the estate agents, you want to provide a bespoke service, and that's kind of what I want to do with this as well. Is the guys who go out, or girls, the people who go out and film and photograph. I want them to feel relaxed, feel valued, and I think essentially that's how you build a strong team, really, as opposed to send them out doing.
There'll be agents listening to this. They've got teams, and probably got some of the wrong people in the team, and they don't necessarily deliver the service or the expectations the customer has in line with them as a business owner. How have you found that? Because it sounds to me like you kind of maybe semi-managed your band and what you were doing over the years. Did that stand you in good stead for, do you know what, building a business in a fairly newish sector for you, but managing the recruitment process, training, and then if they don't work out, letting people go?
Yeah.
What's that been like?
That's a good question. I think I've always been quite brutal in that way, in the way of, I don't expect people to sort of be like me because I've got a vested interest in the business, but I expect them to be somewhere near to me. Do you know what I mean? So 80% of, what I am, kind of thing, in that business. So I think when I was going through, I went through probably 7 or 8 guitarists in maybe 12 years. Because they would start with me, and this is the thing, working with musicians, I've had so many people come up to me and say, why don't you start an agency? And I was like, I cannot stand musicians. Like, the majority, not all of them, but they are awful people to work with, the majority of them. They all think they should be playing Wembley. So they go to a wedding and they're all a bit sort of whatever. They'll turn up late. Just these things that,
irritating.
that my dad built into me when I was younger of how to basically be a good person, turn up on time. I mean, I'm not great at that, to be fair, but I try very hard. Treat people right. The client is your priority. These things that he taught me, and I want to try and get that from people that work for me, or with me
so kind
as
of
well.
Like your values, really, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. So I think when somebody isn't behaving like that, I think that's just a big barrier. And I think, you can either work together and try and get that out of them, which we've done, or it just gets to a point you're like, you know what, like we're just never going to see eye to eye. So I've never really found that bit hard. I think when you know what the end game is for the business, or in music, for example, the competition was hot. Do you know what I mean? So we had to be the best. We had to be literally perfect. Otherwise, the 150 other bands that have, that are behind, that they're going to get in. And so I was always fairly brutal with
standards.
And always, I was always very. That's the thing with bands is they, and again, this is very general, but they're not very good at communication. This is the feedback I get from like bride and groom. So they would email me, for example, and say, "Oh, can you play my wedding?" And I'd be the first to email back. I'd make sure of it. Do you know what I mean? I was the first to communicate. And most of the time, that's why I won the work, is because they said, "Look, you can communicate." And that to me, was kind of said everything. And that if you're just a little bit different from the competition, just put that little bit more effort in, it can really stand out. So I kind of gone sideways to your question, but yeah, I've never found it difficult. I think when you know what the end goal is.
Do you cut early? Do you do you see it early when people aren't working out? It's an interesting, because a lot of people, they hang on to people when they know they're not right.
Yeah.
And that you can go into 9 out of 10 estate agencies and ask if there's anyone working in their team that shouldn't be in the team, and they will say yes. So I like what I'm hearing, because you're very clear on what you believe in, the standards, the values of what you're trying to deliver here, and if people don't fit that and don't show up, then there's no place for them.
It's quite cutthroat in the way of you're only as good as your last job, really. So if we turn up to a job, and it's happened before where we've trained somebody up.
Yeah.
We've spent, I don't know, 2.5 months training them up. We send them out on their first job. They drop the ball. They turn up, they've not got stuff charged. That agent is very unlikely to use, and we had it recently. I'm not going to go into the office that it was, but we had trained someone up. We'd spent 2.5 months training up. They went out on their first job. They didn't charge their stuff up. They lied to us about what happened on the job. Nick spoke to the agent directly, and the agent told us exactly what happened. And then we had to try and salvage that relationship, because essentially we had to go and reshoot the whole thing, which that's not good when you've got to get the vendor to get the house ready again. So that was it. Do you know what I mean? Like I think the way it was. The way that it wasn't somebody coming to us saying, "Look, I've made a bit of a mistake here. This is how I'm going to fix it."
Yeah.
That's different to going, no, everything was fine.
Trust's gone.
Yeah, exactly. To me, when that's gone, that's it. Do you know what I mean? And I think,
it's good. It's leadership. It's not easy building a business, and it's very tough to sometimes make those calls. So just on the video side of it, talking about you're working with agents and the videos and everything else, do you find most estate agents do videos because they think it's going to sell houses, or do you think it's to appease customers, or do you think they actually really understand that it's a massive part of building their brand?
Yeah, okay. I think it's a mix. I really think it's a mix. I mean, we work with some agents who really understand the personal branding. And if ever I'm talking to a room of estate agents explaining what we do and why we do it, I always say that it's not only promoting the house, to get the best sale price, all that sort of stuff. It's yourself as well. That's the kind of secondary. I always call it like secondary sort of benefit of doing these videos. Is the fact that you are essentially putting yourself out there, because we have so many agents who, I don't know, we're doing a bit of local area. They have people coming up to them going, "I saw your video." It happens all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
And they get listings off the back of that, and that is so powerful. So I think there are definitely a lot of people out there who still don't get it. Don't get the power of kind of not what we're doing, but what I think where the industry's moving into. With how you promote your sales, property, things like that. I think there's still a lot of people who just don't get it. And that's okay, it takes time. Do you know what I mean? It does take time. And obviously I believe it because that's what we're doing and that's my kind of mission. I've seen it work in my previous business. I've seen it work with agents now. I've seen them go from nothing to really successful agents.
Why do you think it works? Why do you think it works?
What video specifically? I think it's just the world we're in now. You look at kind of 10 years ago, a video listing on a video for a listing just wasn't really a thing. Whereas now it's becoming fairly normal, and it's like, how do you stand out? Continually pushing those boundaries and getting content out. And I think if you're not doing it, you're just going to be left behind, essentially. Really, I think that's kind of where we are now. And I wonder, if you guys kind of think the same with that. But that's how I feel about the industry now.
Well, we were talking about it earlier, weren't we?
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think I can't remember who it was who said this, but it was really true. They were saying, the reason that you feel sad when a celebrity dies that you've never met, never had anything to do with, you just seen them on TV a lot, is because technology is advancing so quickly, the human brain can't really keep up. You don't know that person, you just feel like you know them because you've seen them on TV. But that's the world we're in now, where we're constantly connected, constantly viewing everything through your phone, through your computer or whatever. But if you've got an agent who's built a personal brand, you feel like you know them. So you're 10 steps ahead in the relationship and trust building before you even get through the front door on a market appraisal. And that's the fast track beauty of the personal brand.
Yeah.
It's the reach and exposure as well, isn't it? If you've got a particular way of doing the videos that you do, it can be associated to your brand, can't it? And you can be the one that, people might see your videos and they'll know that that's your agency, or they see you on camera and you talking about the things that you believe in or that are important to your organisation, or customer reviews, whatever those things are. And that reach is far greater than walking down the street delivering leaflets. You could deliver 100 leaflets and it could take you, well, depending on who you are, it could take you 100 minutes, right? Yeah. And you could do potentially 20 videos in that time that could be cut up into different shorts and reels, and you'll probably get somewhere close to 10,000 views, for argument's sake. So it's I think fear's probably still playing a big part. We talked about fear earlier in another episode, where maybe agents are just, you said it earlier, about they're not confident to get in front of the camera.
It is uncomfortable.
Well, the first video I done, I'll send it to you just to have a little bit of a giggle, because it was really, it was terrible.
I think I've seen that with the
12 years ago. Yeah, 12 years ago.
But fair enough, 12 years ago. Like, who was doing that 12 years ago?
Yeah. I sat in, in a boardroom.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, "Go." And I'd done 35 different attempts to talk about the market in a minute and a half. And we got one, we shared it, and it just looked like I was reading the news.
Yeah.
Because behind him, there were a load of notes, and all I was trying to do was look at what was going on behind him so I could... But actually, I think people, the more they believe in what they're talking about, and maybe even someone asking questions, like, it brings them out of themselves, and then the natural side of them comes out. But do you do training with the presenters, the agents that you work with, because you're clearly very confident. You've come from in front of the camera to behind the camera. Is that something that you were saying earlier that you try and help them with in terms of being at their best when it comes to presentations?
Yeah, I think understanding like what it feels like to be uncomfortable in front of a camera is the first thing. Everybody is.
Yeah, for sure.
Everybody is. We've had it before where we've just been chatting away with someone, your first shoot, really excited, bang, press record. They are literally a different person.
Different voice, different tonality, different.
Everything. It's crazy. And I think because you're looking into a lens, and that lens isn't responding to anything. Do you know what I mean? There's no facial reactions. Yeah, it's like you're getting nothing back. Yeah. We're having a conversation now. We know it's all those kind of subconscious nuances that, I know that, you're agreeing with something I'm saying, or you're not, or, we're going to go, do you know what I mean? But that is literally just a lens, and you're not getting anything back. And then, so you've got to overdo it.
I remember looking at it and my brain was just like mush, and you start making mistakes.
I had an interesting conversation with Michael, who's behind the camera here, so a little plug for Property TV, because he was saying that they do a training course on being in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying, and Michael Shaw, I got this wrong, but a big part of what they do is literally just exposure therapy. Just be in the room with the camera, just get used to the camera being there and recording and you being on it. And that's how you sound, and that's how you look, and you're not going to change any of those things overnight. You've got to get over it.
I notice a lot of people now filming conversations, so it brings the more sort of authentic side to the filming. So in other words, it's kind of one step away from
straight down the lens
to the lens. We're talking here, and we're actually having a discussion today, and we've got different cameras pointing at us. Imagine just doing the podcast looking at
like the news.
Straight
down the line.
And it disengages, doesn't it?
It's a real skill. I mean, we've worked with professional presenters as well, doing kind of YouTube things. And you see, like when they're on, do you know what I mean? When the camera goes on, they are up. Do you know what I mean? Whereas as opposed to working with people who've never done it before, they just go straight down.
And that's really interesting.
Yeah, and it's amazing to watch. When you're working with a professional, it's amazing to see them doing that and feeling just immediately confident.
So what? That's really interesting. So what can an estate agent learn from what you've seen professionals do, those professional presenters? Because obviously I think everyone in this industry wants to just get better on camera, or the ones listening to this podcast, to be honest with you, are going to want to be better and better and better on camera and keep honing their craft. What can they do that would make them better?
I think it's just time. These presenters, they didn't wake up one day.
For a silver bullet then.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't wake up one day and were like that. Hello, welcome. Do you know what I mean? It's like that is honed over so many years, and it's like, again, with music, I didn't just start singing. Like it took many. I remember the first gig I ever did in a pub. I stood behind a keyboard that wasn't even plugged in, and pretended to play it because I wanted a barrier between me and the crowd.
Brilliant.
And that probably took maybe 6 months until I took that keyboard away and just stood there and just thought, you know what? If people don't like it, they can leave.
Yeah.
And to get that kind of confidence, so many gigs, probably 20, 25 gigs until that piano just came away and I could just stand there in front of everybody. And it's exactly the same thing with video. You've just got to get, like you say, you've just got to get comfortable with knowing that you're probably not going to look the way you want to look, and it's going to be a bit odd.
The thing is, though, as well, like if you can draw a comparison there, when you're standing on stage, you can't just press stop, can you? And then go, that's all right, we'll go again. You're in the middle of a performance. There's a lot more pressure, I would say, there than there is when you say, don't worry, look, we can edit, we can cut, you can come back to that bit. It's absolutely fine. So just go for it. And if we need to pause, we can pause.
Showing the pros, that is a big thing.
I mean?
Yeah,
like,
because
on stage, I like some, but you can see some acts, it doesn't even enter their mind they're that confident in their ability. But you can almost sense someone coming to the stage, and you can sense that there's nerves, and that actually sends that back into the crowd. They've got no chances. Once they've made the mistake, that's done. The crowd's off. Same as comedians.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much admiration I've got for musicians and comedians. Yeah. We can turn the camera off, turn it back on. So I think the estate agents, stop it. Stop being scared. Get it done. You'll get better. It's as simple as that. But you must see in your work, is it what's the most sort of satisfying part of it. You alluded to some of the sort of listings that come off the back of people's videos. Do you see some of the houses that you've sold, or not you've sold, but that you've kind of contributed towards the sale? Is that something that you get your kicks from?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, if people don't, we're in a bit of a weird market now where, you know, stuff's been really slow. But I always think, well, if you're with an agent who isn't throwing everything at it and you've not got the best video you possibly can, the best photos, then how do you know that it's a price issue? Do you know what I mean? You know, you've got to kind of cover all the bases first, make sure you've done absolutely everything, and then you can look at the price if it's not selling. So for me, yesterday I was working with one of my agents in London, and she was saying that we were just in the car doing a bit of airing. She goes, "Oh, I've just exchanged on a property." I was like, "Oh, amazing!" And she said, "Yeah, it was one that we filmed," and she said it was on with another agent for 8 months or something. I think it was. Nothing. No offers. Nothing. Maybe a couple of viewings, but nothing. She came in, didn't really do anything to the house. You know, it wasn't staged or anything. But she did the marketing, did the video, did the photos. Had 13 people at an open house, got 6 offers, and sold it within 6 weeks. To me, that's just amazing, because I just think, and you know, it's in a similar sort of market. And I'm not putting it all down to obviously what we do, but I think it helps, you know, because she said the exposure that gave it. Didn't have a video before, photos were on a phone, and I think you add that exposure. And
yeah, I think as well, it's like, you know, what are you doing with the content?
Yeah.
So you could create some of the best content and not put it into the right places.
100%.
In front of the right eyes.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mistake, that people then expect the video to do better.
Yeah.
But they haven't actually directed it. They haven't targeted the right marketplace for that particular.
And it is such a weird, you know, you can upload something on TikTok and you think this is the best content ever. You know, I've got somebody singing and I'm like, that's the best vocal I've ever done. And nothing. And then and you think, and then I upload a video. This is literally a true story. I upload a video. I was at a theme park earlier this year, and I was on this like wet ride, and some guy was hoovering out this boat. And I thought, oh, I'll just record that, because it's just a weird thing. A guy like hoovering out a boat, put it on. No joke. Within 24 hours, I had 1.6 million views, and I was like, I've sung my heart out here. And I'm getting like, I don't understand. I genuinely don't understand.
But if you look at your own phone and you think about what some of the things that you've ended up watching that are completely and utterly pointless, and then you look at the number of likes or viewers and everything else, you're like, what's happening there?
Yeah,
I can't make sense of it. I can't.
No. But do you help with the placement of videos or the direction of the, you know, because you're producing this brilliant stuff, and agents that are investing in it have to invest in it, don't they? They've got to be right behind it, and it's not actually just about producing the work; it's what you do with the work that's been produced.
100%. Yeah, I mean, we don't. To be honest, no, we don't get involved with what happens after the, you know, everything's sent out. We have conversations about things. You know, this would be really good on here or whatever. You know, and we offer, you know, reels or you know whatever people want, but we don't get involved with that, because honestly, it's a totally different minefield.
It's a completely different minefield.
Yeah, and I think, you know, what we offer agents is multiple formats of video to put on multiple platforms. You know, so for example, like a landscape long form is going to go on YouTube, maybe Facebook, obviously Rightmove. Your reels are going to go on TikTok, Instagram. You know, so it's just placing those in the right place. But like you said, you know, you've also got to make sure that they are, you know, it's things like upload. When you upload them matters a lot. Your hashtags that you use, all that kind of stuff, and it's a you can just spend hours and hours, can't you, and days and weeks just trying to figure out.
Reusing videos as well, because I think sometimes like posting them once or directing them out once, you can do it again. And again.
Cut little shorts out.
You know? It's repurposing the sort of content.
100%.
I read something online, someone said that people spend way too long producing content and not enough time promoting it. I was like, that's so true. And we're probably guilty of that with this podcast, to be honest with you. We do all this, create all this footage.
On the way here, some of the content that the guests have been put on here has been amazing. And we haven't really putting it out there
So much time
consistently.
Yeah, we need to get into it.
Yeah, it's the time thing, isn't it?
So
Guilty.
what are the best agents that you work with from a videography perspective? What are the best agents doing, and what separates them from the less good agents? What could people listening to this learn from?
Honestly,
those
consistency. That is it. You cannot book 3 videos in and expect that overnight you're going to transform your business.
Yeah.
It's not how it works. It's not how it worked for me. I kept having to put content out, investing. 6 months later, dropped the pubs, went into the private events, kept having to do it, just keep up with it.
Great story.
It's consistency.
What do you think stops consistency though?
Money.
Money, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time. But if the agents are charging upfront marketing fees,
they're putting it back out.
Not your money, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I think the best agents that we see when they start off, they have a float of their own money that they will invest in their business. Any business you start needs some sort of investment. And I think to invest in your media, how you position yourself as an agent, I think is really important. So we see it quite a lot of the time where agents will start with us and they'll use us for maybe 3 months, and they'll find somebody who's doing it half price on a phone, and they'll go to them. And I always just think, I understand it because it's tough. That first, 6-12 months, you're not getting a paycheck if you're self-employed, really. For a long time, I get it, it's tight.
Yeah, the first year.
Yeah, but that will show. And I know it's easy for me to say because I'm producing that content. Show. Yeah, it will show. And we have certain agents who will just use us for really special properties. And I've said to them, just try, and your whole brand should be this consistent. Yeah. But I understand it's not easy, and I'm not here to judge anybody. But if people ask me for any advice, I would just say, just keep it consistent as much as you can. Just hold on to that horse. Do you know what I mean? Because it's it will pay off. And I've seen it. The agent I was working with yesterday, not going to mention her name, but she is the most. I have said to her so many times, why don't you just do something else? Why don't you just do something else? Because this just, you're a year in. You've got no exchanges, it's crap, but she's like, no, I'm focused, and she just keeps going. She's now, I think she's probably 3 years in, and she's had 4 exchanges the last 3 weeks. And she's like, yeah.
I love that. That's a great story.
To me, that shows my weakness, and I would have jumped ship way earlier than that. I lost my nerve 100%. I'm not proud of it. Within a year, I'd have been like, no, I'm off. I'll go do something else.
To get her on the podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
But she's so resilient, and it's.
But I think that's a really good word, resilient, because you have to be resilient to be consistent. And if consistency doesn't just. I see consistency banned. It is a well-used word in any sport, any business. Consistency. Where does it come from? Well, I think you've got to know why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Work backwards.
And you've got to know that when you work backwards, if you just stay on that path, I think that's tough because people, like you say, it's half the price over here, or maybe I could just stop doing it on that one, and that might have been the one that got the result. So it invariably, if people just stick to that straight line, we was talking about it with another agent just before.
Yeah.
Who referred to door knocking as a done well is a really good lead or a listing getter. You get new customers from it if you do it really well, and gave some examples. And we were saying that when we calculated it back, that an agent could earn £150,000 a year by using 20 hours of their week to door knock. And we incorporated all of the little conversions and conversations and how many people answered the door, how many people didn't answer the door. And you work it through that way, stay on that straight line, you'll do that. And he didn't. He's done it. He's come away from the straight line, gone off and done loads of other different things. And he was saying today, I've hired someone in because I want to be able to get back to doing some of the things that I did really well at the start. And I've just kudos to that lady.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely, and I'm so pleased for her because, like I said, I would have
But that must have been the case in your previous, work as a musician, 15 years, and to be, if you don't mind me saying, in that industry to be able to do it full time is rare.
Yeah,
it's like being a professional footballer. You know,
Yeah.
how many people actually earn a living from football?
Yeah.
Not many.
Well, I got to, when I said what I was going to do, you know, I got told by so many people, you can't make money through music. It's impossible. I bought my family home with that business. You know, I bought every single car that we owned through that business. You just got to figure out how, you know.
So do you think that sort of how and figuring it out and that mindset is transferable?
Through any business, absolutely. And if someone says to you, you can't do that, I think advice is one of those things that's really dangerous, because normally it comes from a place of bad experiences. You know, someone goes, oh, I wouldn't do that. I've done that and I've had a terrible time. But I'm going to do that and I'm going to have a different result, probably. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the people that were telling me you can't make money through music were people that had tried and failed through whatever way that was. You know, I knew that trying to make it as like the next like Ed Sheeran or whatever was very unlikely. And, you know, you're going on the road and you're losing money. You know, you're all in a van, you're going to gigs, you're not getting paid. There's 4 people at the gig. It's horrific. It's a horrible, horrible gig, you know. And that was kind of before like social media became like, do you know what I mean? Like it is now, if you've got a good following, you know, like Teddy Swims, for example, you've got a good following on social media, you're going to get listened to and people are going to pick you up. This was when you had to just gig and hopefully get sort of picked up at a gig by an A&R guy. And, you know, everyone thinks, and it's funny, at all those events, I have people coming up to me all the time going, what's your real job? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I have to kind of say, this is it. And they're like, that's, what do you mean this is it? Yeah, this is it. And then they go, what, you just turn up and play a gig? I'm like, that's the bit you see.
Yeah.
But I'm running a business here. You know, we were doing 140 weddings a year, pre-2020. That's a crazy amount of events, you know.
I think I'm drawing some comparisons, and forgive me if there's no comparison there at all. But I think from the outside looking in, people probably think being a musician is a great
life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that we've created a little bit of that in a estate agency.
I think that's a good comparison to make, yeah.
Because people think you've just got to do a few videos, post a few things, have a couple of coffees and a yoga class.
I'll tell you where this has come from.
You're going to earn 150 grand a year.
This will be referenced in another podcast. I had a message this morning from someone that I went to school with, and she was like, I want to get into a estate agency. Like, what should I do? Where should I start? Their courses or whatever. And we're like, what has she seen?
Yeah.
That's made her want to do that.
Yeah,
and so we were talking about it in the last podcast, and Matt's advice to her was, don't do anything, just go and do a day in the life of being an estate agent. Actually, that isn't
Selling Sunset. Don't watch it.
Because people only see you on the stage getting and it's only at the end when you get the applause, the clap.
Yeah.
You know, you get the applause. They don't see you setting up. They don't see the 100 hours of practice.
No,
they don't see that.
Driving home, like stuff in your face to try and stay away.
The reason why I'm saying about estate agencies, estate agents, if you're watching this, to be at the top of your game, you've got to do 90% out of the house. Not in the house. You've got to be. You might be in the house talking about offers or showing someone around or whatever it is. 90% of your work to be in that 10%, you've got to work so hard.
And come back to what you said about the consistency thing. Like the consistency is doing the work without an immediate result coming back again with no loss of enthusiasm.
Right off the year.
And
if you're a self-employed agent.
Tough. That is tough.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah.
You know, my payoff was fairly quick because, you know, as soon as I had the content, you know, I had like a promotional video of my band, I could then bang, put that straight on the website, put a bit of Google ad, you know, behind it, and bookings just started coming in.
Yeah.
Different with the estate agency, it's a slow burner. But take the girl that I was working with yesterday, you know, she just stuck with it, and she has always stuck with the process. She has used, and I'm not just saying we're the only company doing this, because there are other companies doing content and things like that who are great, and I would 100% back those, you know, but I'm saying that she used us from the beginning. She stuck to the process, and it's paying off for her now. And I just think it's amazing.
You know, obviously not to name her name now, but off camera, give us her name and we'll make an approach. Because I think it's so important for us to bring examples into the studio of the right behaviours, the right habits. And most of it includes failure and hard work and not very pleasant stories, you know. And I think the sooner people realise that, like that 20 hours, 19 of the hours are going to be rejection, but the hour is 15,000. And And if you work it on that basis per hourly rate, that's a pretty healthy hourly rate. You know, and actually when you present the thing differently to people, and I think this is maybe where the world skews things quite a lot, because I imagine for a lot of people, especially when there was the talent shows for music, like Pop Idol and X Factor and stuff, people were an overnight success without any of the foundations, any of the groundwork.
Yeah.
They almost probably felt guilty, or there was an imposter syndrome kicking into gear.
Yeah, and I think it was,
Do you know what I mean?
It's interesting you mention those, because they were like absolutely happening when we were, and we did Britain's Got Talent as a band. You know, we did it.
Did you?
Yeah. So we, I don't really know why. I think it was probably desperation of
No,
like
but
just
why
trying to get
wouldn't you?
some.
Why
But,
not?
but there are bands that have done that, and they have done the hard work, and that's how they got spotted to maybe you should come on, because the show needs some talent on there.
Yeah,
for
sure.
Do you know what I mean?
And I think, you know, for me, playing in those horrible, shitty pubs where, you know, we were abused, you know, by locals. You know, it was not nice. But playing those shitty places, that honed my craft of being able to deal with crowds like that. So when I go to weddings, like nothing they say can shock me, and you can just bang, you can just snap back. And so I don't take anything from those years, because those years of walking in and you've got matey at the bar going, oh yeah, do you know what I mean? All this kind of stuff. Like those years, and you're right, with those people who had gone on like X Factor or whatever and just made it without having that kind of
resilience. There's no resilience.
Exactly. I think it makes for and those shows essentially were making really kind of one-hit wonders. You've got obviously like people who are not one-hit. You know,
but I think
One
this is
Direction,
where I was
whatnot,
this is where I was going. I think with you're going to earn 100 grand a year, 150 grand a year. We're almost doing the same thing in our industry. We're teaching people how not to get there through the resilience of hard work, foundational, consistent work, effort, graft, rejection, all the things you need to build anything that's sustainable. And a sustainable pop career isn't going on a talent show without any previous experience in the rejection field, which the music industry clearly is 99.9% of. I played football up until I was 18, 19, England trials, Cambridge, Leeds, here, there and everywhere. And rejection is as rife in football as it is probably in music in many respects. Not many people end up having a career earning from it, you know? But imagine just being flown into the Premier League, and then you're off and you're playing for one of the top clubs like West Ham, and you're out there centre forward. You wouldn't be able to do it. Do you know what I mean? You might make a bag of gold, but it's such a challenge for people to get their heads around, because they see social media and the glory and the lights. There's a tiny piece of running a business.
It really is, and I think, you know, that social media thing gives us a sense of a false reality a lot of the time.
I think so.
I think it's tough, you know. And the funny thing is, you know, we sometimes feel like little sort of agony aunts to the estate agency industry, because we spend so much time with these agents. You know, if we're there all day, we'll go for lunch. You know, all the agents that we work with, you know, we all get on so well. You know, it's literally like we're all working together for the same aim. And but we've seen people come and go just so much, and it is that I think they come into the industry with a bit of a false sense of
100%.
I'm going to go and get these houses. I'm going to earn 150 grand a year, you know. But it is tough. It is tough. And I've been asked, you know, do you want to get into a estate agency? I see all the sides to it, and I'm like, not yet. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not, because I see that other side, and I think if the people who had never seen that before, and just see the good stuff that's out on social media and Selling Sunset and all that stuff, if they just see that, great job. If they saw the whole picture, I'm not sure that most of them would really get into it, because you have to be tough.
Yeah, and then there's so much to drill down on in there that we probably haven't got time today. But it's that but that's the bit that makes that little bit at the top so much more satisfying.
So much sweeter, yeah.
So that's drawn the comparables there to the music. That's got to be some kind of reel of some description. But no, seriously. But I think what's great is that, you know, we meet a lot of people, and passion, I think, has got to be you've got to be passionate about what you do. How do you stay passionate about what you do?
I think because when we started the business, it was such a, video was getting a lot of traction, and I think working back to what I said earlier in the podcast of, how I use media to push my business. That's my passion. My passion is making people believe that works. Do you know what I mean? In business, it does work. A lot of my friends are musicians, and none of them have really been able to make it work full time and actually enjoy, a good career in music. It's a struggle. It's hard. I put a lot of it down to that media, and I think bringing that into an industry where people are still learning that's how I keep it alive. Is because you're always trying to educate people into that. But also for me, I'm continually being educated by meeting these interesting people every day. And like I said, some get it, some don't. Some will go away and they'll think, no, that's not working. I've been doing this 2 months, not working. I'll try something else. But like you said, with the process, you've got to stick to the process, believe it's going to work. Because honestly, the agents that we've worked with who have
got the rewards.
Every time it works.
So if you come back to the point you said a lot earlier in the conversation about timing, what's quite interesting about where we are now is that the rate of change for the way properties are presented has gone quicker and quicker and quicker in the last few years than it probably has in the last 100 combined. And especially if you take a step back and look at it with things like drones becoming pretty readily available, very cheap. You used to have this cheaper cameras on sticks and everything before all of that. Helicopters, all this sort of nonsense. And then the way that phones have come on, even just stuff like 4G, if you actually think that the ability to look at these videos wherever you are, basically in the country, is all these things have come together in one point to make this. So that rate of change is going ever faster. Where do you see that? Where do you see that going? What does the future of that look like for our industry, and what should agents be thinking of from a property presentation point of view for the? That's an impossible question, isn't it? But for the next 5 years, what's it going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, technology for us it's an interesting one because phones are getting so good. What you're not getting with a phone is someone behind it making you feel comfortable, creating ideas with you. And that, I think, is where the companies who have set up, where all the people that work for it are those kind of people who, are passionate to create, passionate to make those people feel comfortable. I don't think you can ever really replace that job. So where do I see it in 5 years? I mean, it's probably an impossible question because it is just moving so fast. But then I look at technology now and I think, well, how can it get any better? Really, you said, drones. You can pick up these little 249 gram drones and just chuck them up anywhere. You're getting 4K beautiful cinematic footage. The gimbals that we use. Honestly, I used to attach them to your belt and walk around and now it's just a one-handed,
selfie stick.
It's crazy.
It's great. It has rapidly advanced.
It really has.
There was something really interesting that came out the other day because, the way the technology goes on and improves, how can it improve? And maybe this sounds a little bit crazy, but maybe there's a point where a lot of the hardware actually can't, because you do reach a plateau of this stuff where there's only so much human eye can actually see in terms of definition.
True.
There was a new iPhone came out this week or last week or something, and no one really seems to care. It's not any different. And people are almost complaining about this because 10 years ago, a new iPhone was a big thing. But new laptops come out, no one cares, and you just reach that level of optimization. So what's left? What's going to change? And I think it's going to be the people. That the standards are going to get ever higher, and expectations are going to get ever higher from the public watching what estate agents do presenting properties.
And I think I saw a stat that was something like 70. It was a YouTube stat. It was like 76% of people that watch YouTube or watch property videos and you expect TV quality. That's what they expect. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's an interesting stat.
I totally buy that.
That was it. But it's interesting that you mentioned the technology thing because I had an iPhone 13 for years. I thought, I'm going to upgrade to 15. I'm going to take the plunge, And I guess I probably had it for 2.5 years. But I thought there's been a lot of change in that time. Transferred everything over. I thought, right, I'm excited to use this. Nothing really. A bit of stabilisation on the camera.
That's
but
it.
like, genuinely,
but they really, the marketing behind all of that as well is so cool.
I think they're struggling with that
The best marketing thing is they get your existing phone not to work very well.
Terrible battery life.
Genius, isn't it? Anything to do with that is fantastic.
Definitely.
No, it's a difficult one.
It is an interesting one, though.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think these standards of production, I think, are just going to keep getting better.
Yeah.
People's expectations will be more. But it's good, though, because it keeps us pushing. I introduced like fortnightly team meetings with my team. We've never done that before, but I said, look, we've got to get ahead of everybody else. So how we do that, we meet just on a Zoom or whatever every fortnight. We had the first one on Monday. We all got on Zoom and we talked about what have you seen, what content have you seen that you like that we can do better.
Yeah.
And just keep pushing. So the way that we're producing videos now are so different to like 3 years ago. Before it was just long form. Now you've got to think about reels, and do you know what I mean? It's so different now.
Yeah.
And I think for us, we've got to stay on top of that and be pushing it forward to stay.
But I hate to say it. I also think like novelty is quite important as well. So maybe there's two examples. There's one to be your man sucking the boat out with a hoover. Like, what the hell's that about? No one's seen it, so it's novel, so it does well. Yeah. And then I saw a video and I was like, oh God, these things really are going quite quickly. There was a video that Ryan Serhant put on the day and he had his phone in his hand and it looked like he was throwing his phone over a house. Did you see this?
Yeah, I did.
And the transition really smoothly from him looking like he's throwing his phone to a drone that was going over the house to the aerials, and then it looked like he caught his phone on the other end. And I was like, whoa, that was cool. I wonder where he's got that from. And all those bits of novelty like stuck in my mind. If it was just a house tour, you see a million of those bits of novelty somehow. It's hard to get it classy and not look tacky though, isn't it? Like, that's really difficult.
And that's one thing that we're really hot on is trying to not. I always remember saying to one of our first agents, our job is to basically make you not look like a douche. That's our job, really, because it's so easy to. Do you know what I mean? It's so easy on camera to just look like a bit of a dick.
Yeah.
And I think we've tried to just be very cautious of trying to keep that balance. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes some agents, they just want to do this thing where, they're crazy examples, really, but things that we're like, oh, this is a bit cringe, but that's what they're going with. Do you know what I mean? And we'll advise that, but they want to do it, and that's cool. Like we'll still film it, So it's that balance. But it's interesting you mentioned that video because I saw a similar thing, and I think there's a fine balance between getting a load of likes and a load of views, and actually what's important is selling those properties.
Yes.
And I think, you can become a product, but are you actually doing your job?
Yes.
And are you
have
selling?
You forgotten the house?
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a balance there because the long form stuff that we create is showing the house off. People are touring around the house,
selling the house.
Yeah, that goes on Rightmove. That's generally what people are going to watch and buy the house. All the other stuff is your kind of name. Whether that transpires into anything, I don't know, but it's probably more for ego. I'm guilty of it. I put stuff up on TikTok, on Instagram and stuff because essentially I feel like it's doing my brand good, but it feels good as well. Do you know what I mean? You get loads of views in a video, you think, sweet.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It makes you feel good. It gives you that buzz. It gives you that kind of dopamine hit. Yeah. But I think sometimes you've got to bring that back down to what's really important. You might be doing that, but you haven't exchanged in 6 months, anything. So the long form stuff is also really important. The real stuff is fun, but the long form stuff's really important for actually selling the house and showing people the property.
That's great. Yeah, it's really good. It's
that balance between ego and,
exchanges.
Getting some money in the bank, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you early, mate. You're going to ask about authenticity.
Remember, I'm 49 soon. I can't remember the bloody thing. Jesus Christ. My memory, I go into the kitchen and think, what did I come
What am I doing in here?
But no, I think it's been, for me, this is what's great is to see a fellow business owner, and I've learned a few things on that side, which I love, which is it's got to be about your beliefs, your vision. It's your investment, it's your livelihood, and if people can't step up to that, off you go. I latched onto that because I've been too passive over the years in that particular area personally. The other thing that I really enjoyed from today is the creativity and the passion around creating really, really great content for your agents as well. Because I think there's a lot of people that do a job and they're interested in being a videographer. And then there's people that are committed to being a videographer. And I think there's a massive difference between the two. Same as an agent that comes into selling a house. 9 out of 10 are just interested in building a rapport, which is a false way of building a relationship. And then the one that goes in there and they're by that vendor's side before, during, after the transaction, they're the ones that are committed to the cause, which is to get the vendor's outcome. And I think it's the same with what you're doing at the minute.
Yeah.
So,
and it's not easy to find. It's the hardest part, and I've never really had to deal with it. If I needed a guitarist in my old job, they're pretty easy to find. Good ones are quite hard. But I feel like I was fairly lucky, with who I had. But certainly in this business, and obviously when me and Dave, we talk about each other's businesses, and I know that it's tough for you. It's the hardest part of your job is finding those right people. And I think, like you said, if you have a vision of where you want to be in 5 years or whatever, if that doesn't fit, then just cut it off.
I think it's like what's come through from this conversation for me is about standards.
totally.
In the standards of the musicians in your band, or the standards of the quality that you're producing, and then how consistently you're doing it is your own personal standard as well. I think that's been really interesting. Okay, Matt, thank you for that. That's been really interesting.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. We do have one final question for you, which is the most
This is the most important one, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have a bit of a closing tradition on Property Porn Stars. So Matt, everyone, whether they know it or not, has a porn star name. You are our star of the day. And that name is comprised of your middle name and your first pet's name. And while you're putting that together, it infuriates me to my very core that we're on episode, I don't know, maybe 30 or something.
30 probably
and
now,
first episode, he's top of the leaderboard and no one's pipped him since.
How do you win?
Well, it's just the most ridiculous, really.
Kevin Tiny.
That's yours?
So that's mine.
Kevin Tiny.
Yeah, proper porn star name, that one. Not for the right reasons, obviously. Well, I'd like to think it's not true, but my wife hasn't watched this yet. But anyway.
Stand up.
Imagine that.
Let's ramp this up. I'll get some views on TikTok. There you go.
Exactly.
Kevin Tiny, is it? Who knows?
Who knows? Have a guess.
So come on, Matt, what's yours?
What's yours? What's your...
And then mine was pretty boring. Mine was Edward Wonton, which is just weird, isn't it? It's not even like funny, it's just weird.
Wonton?
I had a dog called
Eddie
Wonton. We inherited a dog from my auntie, and when the dog was a puppy, it looked like a crispy wonton. It was a big orange dog, so it looked like a little crispy wonton, so that's why it's called Wonton. But they're not very good as a porn star name. It's no Kevin Tiny, and it's no...
John Jemima would be mine. Good? John Jemima.
Johnny Jemima.
Johnny Jemima,
Yeah, it's got a ring to it. Niche audience. Okay.
What's some of the other good ones?
Oh no, they've been crap mainly, haven't they? They have.
Easy for you to say top of the leaderboard.
Nowhere near.
Matt, you'll have to watch all the other episodes.
I'll create a list.
Yeah.
We should have a podcast.
What I like, anyway, but it's been great.
Well, you can say what you like.
No. It's so, when you kind of build up to the question, and it's like, you can have a porn star name, and some of them are just, there's just nothing there.
Well, some people don't even have middle names. You're like, what?
At that point.
Oh, that's awkward, isn't it?
Yeah,
What do you do then?
Yeah.
Let's make something up, I think.
Yeah, it didn't really work.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, it's not the most sensible closing
No.
tradition. I think a podcast going to have. We've started that way now, so we're going to have to keep
We
going.
might need another algorithm to get there.
Hang on,
And again, you
did
keep
you have a
calling
pet
it...
called Little?
Huh?
You had a pet called Little?
Tiny.
No, Tiny.
Tiny, sorry.
The cat.
Tiny, okay.
Yeah. The other one was
Right.
Fluffy, so Kevin Fluffy could have been quite...
Stop it.
Good.
To be honest.
You've won twice over.
I know, and they're genuine as well, not made up. Anyway.
Wow.
Well, on that bombshell, Matt, thank you so much for joining us. It's been really interesting. Really appreciate it. And we really appreciate you listening or watching this episode of Property Porn Stars. And we'll catch you in the next episode.